Imagine entering a public restroom where you share the same sponge to clean yourself. Now, move to the Roman circus. The sweat of the victorious gladiator is sold as luxury perfume. And if that wasn't enough, some families wash their clothes by stomping on fermented human urine. Don't leave yet, this is just the beginning, because you'll discover that the Rome you admire was much stranger, and more fascinating, than you were taught. Ready to dive into the most unexpected secrets of ancient Rome? Like, subscribe, and join me on this journey to the most intimate, and surprising, aspects of the most famous empire in history. 1. The communal sponge in public baths. Travel with me to the heart of a public latrine in Rome, the year 135 AD. The air smells of dampness, worn stone, and that sour vinegar that floats in the buckets to the side. Simple toga-clad men and purple-robed senators sit shoulder to shoulder, with no walls between them. They talk politics, close deals, and yes, they do their business with complete naturalness. While water runs beneath the marble seats, each user reaches for the tersorium, a sea sponge securely tied to a stick. It is rinsed in a little channel of salt water, rubbed, shaken twice, and returned to the vinegar jar for the next client. There's no VIP turn, you share the same sponge with the poet, the soldier, or the baker who just entered. The problem is, no one knew the concept of bacteria. Excavations in Ostia Antica reveal fossilized intestinal parasites in the drains, evidence that this was a cocktail of infections. But for an average Roman, the latrine was a social club. They discussed the games in the circus, bet on the next gladiatorial fight, and there were even street musicians entertaining the place. Now, imagine proposing this communal sponge at your office today. You'd have a sanitary revolution in under a minute. However, in the Romans' eyes, it made sense. Vinegar disinfects, water runs, and the city flaunts its engineering. What seems unthinkable to us, to them, was a symbol of civilization. Still think ancient Rome was just marble and grandeur? Wait until you see what they did with food. 2. Vomiting as a detox medicine. What if I told you that vomiting was prescribed by respected doctors? Forget the Hollywood image of the vomitorium behind the banquet. That was just the exit hall of the theater. The real story happens in the kitchen, beside a bubbling pot of garum, fermented fish entrails forming an intense sauce that every Roman revered. Pliny the Elder called it liquid gold. But there was a more drastic use: dilute garum in warm water and drink it as a stomach purge. Galen, the personal physician of the elite, claimed that frequent cleansing of the belly brings balance to the soul. Thus, a senator would indulge in a feast of grapes and wild boar, and before dawn, he would drink his garum cocktail with vinegar. Then he'd insert a feather down his throat, release the excess, and proclaim, mens sana in corpore sano. Although it sounds grotesque, the reasoning was medical. They believed that heavy food upset the humors and that vomiting would rebalance them. Today, we know that inducing vomiting unnecessarily dehydrates, damages the esophagus, and throws electrolytes out of balance. Far from curing, it weakened those who practiced it. But for the Romans, it was an act of discipline, to cleanse the body in order to receive more pleasure without the sin of gluttony. Would you dare to detox like that before your next festive meal? Prepare your stomach. In the next section, we'll be drinking blood, and not wine, precisely. 3. Gladiator blood and liver against epilepsy. Imagine the roar of the Colosseum still echoing, and in the midst of the dust and blood, a doctor lifts a steaming jar, inside, the true essence of the fallen warrior. They believed that drinking the fresh blood of a gladiator could cure epilepsy. And even more incredible, his raw liver, a medicinal treasure reserved for the wealthiest pockets. A liter of that blood cost the equivalent of half a legionary's monthly salary. The nobles paid without hesitation. They said that by drinking it, hot, still pulsating, you would absorb the strength, courage, and endurance of the freshly won battle. Others mixed the blood with aromatic oils to rub it on their skin, hoping it would give them physical vigor and bravery. The liver, however, was the gold standard, rarer, more expensive, and considered even more powerful. It was macerated in sweet wine and offered in tiny cups, as if it were a sacred liquor. Those who drank it claimed to feel a buzz of power coming to life in their muscles. Today, we know there are no miracles. Drinking human blood can transmit diseases, overload the body with iron, and even cause kidney failure. Far from curing, it put lives at risk. But for the Romans, the ritual united medicine and myth, health and spectacle. Ready to discover how gladiator sweat became the most prized aphrodisiac. For gladiators sweat, aphrodisiac and cosmetic. When the final blow resonates and the warrior walks out triumphantly, another ritual barely begins. A quiet slave rubs his sweaty body with pieces of wool, collects the shining droplets, and squeezes them into a tiny jar. At the foot of the Circus Maximus, at small stalls next to the vomitoria, these essences of victory were offered as if they were the perfume of gods. The sweat of a champion was worth more than a silk toga. Women from all social classes paid fortunes for a few drops capable of igniting passion or beautifying the skin. It was mixed with olive oil and crushed flowers, applied as an ointment, or added to face balms, promising unparalleled radiance. They believed that the courage and strength of the gladiator were absorbed into his sweat. One application behind the ear, a touch on the neck, and whoever wore it claimed to feel invincible. Today, we would be amazed to see influencers selling star essences at exorbitant prices, but that market already existed 2,000 years ago. Prepare your soot brushes. In the next section, we will unravel the Roman obsession with dark eyebrows and the mythical unibrow. 5. Obsession with the unibrow and dense eyebrows. Close your eyes and imagine a portico illuminated by torches. Inside, a group of Roman matrons gazes into a bronze mirror, seeking the perfect line. In their hands, a piece of soot and a fine metal rod. Their brushes to darken and define their eyebrows, making them a symbol of status and intelligence. Influenced by Hellenistic elegance and Egyptian myths, elite women not only marked their eyebrows, but they also connected them in a delicate arch, the famous unibrow, considered proof of wisdom and classical beauty. To achieve this, they gently scraped soot from torches, mixed it with hot wax, and sculpted it with surgical precision. But that wasn't enough. Those who wanted a more dramatic effect wore fake eyebrows made of goat wool, attached with tree resin. Imagine the ritual, sticking each wool strand, adjusting the symmetry, and declaring to the world, "I am cultured, powerful, and deserve respect." Today, it might seem extravagant, but just look at modern runways. Shaping, filling, dyeing, the obsession with perfect eyebrows is still alive. Would you have dared to wear the Roman-style unibrow? Prepare your nose. Next, we will uncover the secrets, and the dangers, of toxic makeup in ancient Rome. 6. Toxic and foul-smelling makeup. Imagine entering a Roman matron's dressing room. The air is filled with sour acidic smells, sheep placenta, animal bile, and even malachite powder mixed with vinegar. There, jars of ointments promise a flawless, porcelain-like complexion, but they hide deadly secrets. To lighten the skin, they mixed powdered lead with rose water. To firm it, they added crocodile or bird excrement. Facial masks were made from charcoal ash and lamb's wool fat, all with the scent of fermented urine. The result, a porcelain face, and an irritated scalp, infections, and in extreme cases, lead poisoning. Surprising, isn't it? Although it seemed like a necessary aesthetic sacrifice, many Roman women suffered from chronic dermatitis and hair loss. However, these cosmetics defended their status. Whiteness and delicate skin were emblems of the upper class. Prepare your comb and dyes. Now we will discover how hairstyles and dyes revealed your social status. 7. Hairstyles as social code and bizarre dyes. Close your eyes and travel to a salon scented with olive oils and dry petals. There, the matrons gather in front of bone combs and bronze mirrors to weave their identity into each strand. In ancient Rome, hairstyles were not just fashion, they were a social calling card. Married women wore complex updos, crossed braids, high buns adorned with ivory pins, as shields of fidelity. Virgins, on the other hand, preferred simple braids or a discreet half-up style, signaling availability and purity. Only prostitutes allowed their hair to flow freely, waving loose, a silent message of narrative independence. But perhaps the most surprising were the dyes. The mahogany tone was obtained by boiling saffron in vinegar, the reddish color came from crushed walnut bark. Blonde, initially reserved for Gallic slaves, was so coveted that some resorted to extreme methods, soaking their hair in pigeon droppings mixed with goat fat, or rubbing gold and potassium powders to mimic the sun's shine. And wigs? They were living relics of captive slaves. Braided strands of Gallic hair were woven into leather bases, then scented with roses and honey. A high-born lady would slide that wig onto her head, declaring, "Today, I walk with the beauty of the West upon my skull." Today, between vegan dyes and synthetic extensions, the fascination with changing looks persists. But would you dare to use a mixture of vinegar and saffron at your next salon session? Grab your glass, let's learn why some emperors drank small sips of poison to make themselves immune. 8. Microdoses of poison, Mithridatism. Raise your glass alongside the imperial podium, and take a sip of Mithridatium, the legendary potion that promised immunity to all known poisons. The myth starts with Mithridate VI, king of Pontus, who every morning added a drop of strychnine, another of ricin, and a splash of hemlock to his personal brew. The bolder Romans followed his example. They aspired to a body invulnerable to palace conspiracies. Feasts included test cups, where diners would taste microdoses of poison before moving on to the main dish. They believed that by acclimatizing the body, it would stop fearing poisoning. Of course, there was no dosage control. Some nobles suffered from chronic nausea, nerve damage, or even accidental deaths. Today, we know that cross-tolerance between toxins is a myth and that the liver doesn't learn to process lethal poisons. But, for the Romans, it was science and self-sacrifice in one mixture. Get your washing sponge ready, let's uncover the secrets of Roman laundries and their curious use of urine. 9. Urine laundries, Philonicae. You walk into a Roman laundry, and the first thing that hits you is the smell. Not soap or flowers, but fermented urine. You find yourself in a Philonica, where dirty clothes were not washed with water and detergent, but with a powerful natural cleaner, ammonia extracted from human urine. How did it work? First, the clothes were thrown into large vats filled with urine collected from public buckets. Then, slaves or workers would stomp on the garments for hours to loosen the dirt. And it wasn't just any urine. The preferred urine came from specific provinces like Hispania, famous for its whitening quality. The urine was mixed with lime and ashes to enhance its effect. After stomping, the garments would go through a rinse with clean water and then dry under the sun. For wealthier clients, an extra step was offered, spraying the clothes with aromatic essences like rosemary, myrrh, or lavender to neutralize the residual smell. This liquid was so important that Emperor Vespasian imposed a special tax on urine collected from public baths. And when his son criticized him for monetizing such a vulgar thing, he responded by showing a coin and saying, "Money does not stink." Ready to smile? Let's reveal how the same urine was used to whiten teeth. 10. Urine as a tooth whitener. In a Rome without toothpaste, toothbrushes, or modern dental hygiene concepts, fermented urine was a luxury solution available to everyone. And it wasn't just any urine. The imported urine from Hispania was the most prized for its high ammonia content. Some people used it as a mouthwash, others applied it with cloths directly onto their teeth. It was believed to not only whiten but also help prevent oral diseases. For the Romans, the bad smell was an acceptable price for a bright smile. Today, with the variety of pastes, rinses, and professional whitening treatments available, this practice might seem like a grotesque joke. But at the heart of the empire, a white smile was worth any sacrifice, even rinsing with urine before an important date. And if you thought that was the most extreme, wait for the section where you'll learn how the Romans made their own dentures, from bone and ivory. 11. Bone and ivory dentures. Did you lose a tooth in the sand or at a tavern? No problem, Rome will rebuild it, with ivory or human bone. The obsession with dental aesthetics led the Romans to develop a sort of artisanal dentistry. If a tooth broke or fell out, which was common due to the constant consumption of hard bread, sour garum, and urine mouthwashes, there was a quick and visible solution. Dentures made from carved ivory pieces, animal bones, or even donated, or extracted teeth. Some specialized doctors offered services in their homes, while others were simply skilled craftsmen who knew how to fix these pieces with gold threads, natural resin, or rudimentary metal bands. Although uncomfortable and not durable, these prosthetics were a symbol of wealth and status. A Roman with a full smile, even if fake, earned respect in the forum and prestige at banquets. And, of course, there were always charlatans offering martyrs' teeth or pieces blessed by the gods, convincing the gullible that chewing with them would bring luck and longevity. Now get ready for a recipe worthy of Nero. Romans drank pig and goat dung as an energy drink. 12. Energy drink of roasted dung. Raise your cup and toast to the empire. But be careful, what you're about to drink isn't wine, but goat dung. Yes, although it may sound unbelievable, in ancient Rome, roasted dung was believed to have invigorating properties. To prepare it, fresh goat or pig excrement was collected, dried in the sun, then slowly roasted until it was charred. Once ready, it was soaked in boiling vinegar. The resulting liquid was drunk in small sips as a revitalizing tonic. Nero, the infamous emperor, was known to consume this energy drink before long walks or intimate encounters. The mixture, according to chroniclers, increased physical endurance, cleared the mind, and purified the humors. Although there is no modern scientific evidence to support these benefits, for the Romans, the logic was clear. What smells bad and hurts when swallowed surely heals. Something like our love for raw ginger or garlic on an empty stomach. Fortunately, today we have coffee, matcha, and more digestible energy drinks. But if you ever complain about the taste of your supplement, remember, it could have been fermented dung. And if that seems strong, we'll continue revealing how the price for breaking a vow of chastity was being buried alive. 13. Punishment for unfaithful Vestal virgins. In the heart of Rome, virtue was not only worshipped, it was brutally monitored. The Vestal virgins, priestesses chosen from childhood, had a sacred duty, to guard the fire of Vesta, symbolizing Rome's eternity. In return, they received privileges unimaginable for any other woman, independence, power, influence, but at a very high price. If one of them broke her vow of chastity, the punishment was crueler than a quick death, she was buried alive. The process began with a public ceremony of dishonor. Her priestly garments were removed, her head was shaved, and she was silently paraded through the streets, guarded like a criminal. She was then taken to an underground crypt with a lamp, bread, and water, and the door was closed forever. Why this method? Because Roman law prohibited directly killing a Vestal. So, they buried her alive, leaving her to die by divine will. Her lover, if identified, was hanged like a traitorous slave. For the Roman people, this punishment was not a tragedy, but a duty. An impure Vestal meant danger for the entire city. Earthquakes, poor harvests, or wars were attributed to her dishonor. It's chilling to think that those who represented Rome's purity lived under an invisible sword over their heads. In their faith, a woman's body was not hers, it was for the temple, the city, and destiny. 14. Phallic talisman of good luck. You walk through a Roman house, and the first thing you see at the entrance is not a cross or a horseshoe, but a carved stone penis. In ancient Rome, phallic figures, known as fascinum, were considered powerful amulets against the evil eye, envy, and malevolent spirits. Far from being offensive, these symbols were hung on doors, painted on walls, and even used as necklaces and rings. They believed that the representation of the male organ, in ideal proportions, not exaggerated, was an expression of fertility, prosperity, and divine protection. It was not uncommon to see children wearing amulets in the shape of a penis around their necks, or to find bread carts with phallic reliefs sculpted on their sides. In Pompeii, for example, mosaics of winged penises flying across the ceilings were discovered, with bells ringing to scare away evil spirits. And beware of the size, if the phallus was too big, it no longer brought luck, it became an object of public mockery. Superstition? Maybe. But for the Romans, a phallus on your door frame was more effective than a neighborhood alarm. 15. Rumors of Christian cannibalism. Rome, 1st century. A rumor circulates in the streets: Christians gather at night to devour human flesh and drink blood. The source? Their own liturgy. This is my body, this is my blood. Jesus' words repeated in the Eucharist were taken literally by the Romans, who didn't understand that it was a sacred symbol. Thus, one of the most chilling misunderstandings in history was born. Christians were undercover cannibals. The secrecy of their meetings, their refusal to worship the emperor, and their habit of calling each other brothers and sisters didn't help. To the Roman eye, they were a dangerous sect practicing dark rituals, and since they didn't participate in banquets or public celebrations, they were considered antisocial, subversive, and possibly perverse. That's why, for years, Christians were persecuted not only for their faith but for what the people believed they were: corpse worshippers, desecrators, and silent conspirators. Yet, that faith that began hidden in catacombs would eventually conquer the heart of the empire. From fear to respect. From shadow to altar. What do you think about ancient Rome now? It wasn't all marble columns, grand speeches, and military conquests. There was also bottled sweat, bone dentures, and urine, lots of urine. These madnesses show us something essential: that every culture, no matter how advanced it seems, has its own oddities. And perhaps, 1,000 years from now, someone will look at our current customs and say, did they really do that? Tell me in the comments. Which of these customs did you find the most incredible? And which one, honestly, would you never dare to try? Subscribe if you want to keep exploring the strangest, most fascinating, and human side of history. And remember, a people who don't know their past are doomed to repeat it.